The sun shone brightly over Nova City, making the glass towers of the financial district gleam like crystals. Inside the tallest building, Novatech Industries was preparing for the most important day in its history. The company's CEO, Elaine Voss, stood in the center of a sleek presentation hall, her dark blue suit perfectly tailored, her confident smile fixed for the crowd. She had spent months preparing for this moment, and nothing could be allowed to go wrong. The hall was filled with important people. Top investors from across the planet sat in polished steel chairs, murmuring to each other while sipping imported tea. News reporters with tiny floating camera drones hovered near the back, ready to stream the event live to millions. Engineers and staff members lined the sides of the room, wearing nervous expressions as they waited for the big reveal. At the center of the hall stood the prize, the Ether Core, Novatech's latest creation. It was a silver and black device shaped like a cylinder, its surface engraved with fine geometric lines that seemed to shimmer when the light hit them just right. The Ether Core was designed to produce clean, limitless energy, a technology that could change life on Earth forever. If today went well, Novatech would become the most powerful energy company in history. Elaine stepped forward and began her speech. She spoke of the challenges humanity faced: pollution, resource scarcity, and the need for innovation. She painted a picture of a brighter future powered by the Ether Core. Every word was carefully chosen to inspire confidence and excitement. The investors listened intently, some nodding in agreement, others already imagining the profits they would earn. Finally, she gave the signal. One of her senior engineers, a tall man named Howard, walked up to the device and pressed a button. A soft hum filled the air, and the engraved lines on the Ether Core began to glow. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for the promised display of raw energy. But then the sound changed. The hum grew uneven, sharp clicks echoing from inside the machine. The glow flickered and dimmed. An error message appeared on the display panel. Howard frowned, tapped a few keys, and then tapped them again, faster. Nothing changed. A faint, burning smell drifted into the air. A low murmur spread through the audience. One of the investors whispered to his neighbor, and another began typing notes into a smart pad. The news drones adjusted their angles, clearly sensing a developing story. Elaine's smile tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "It's just a minor glitch," she said, glancing at Howard. Howard looked pale. "It's not responding," he muttered under his breath. He tried a manual reset, but the machine refused to power up properly. More warning lights began to flash. One by one, the engineers rushed forward to help. They connected diagnostic tools, typed commands, and opened small panels to inspect the circuits. Still, the Ether Core stayed stubbornly broken. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The investors' patience began to fade. One of them, a gray-haired woman from an interplanetary mining firm, checked her watch with a sigh. Elaine knew the event was slipping out of her control. Her company's reputation was on the line, and her rivals would hear of this failure within hours. She needed to regain the room fast. She straightened her shoulders and raised her voice so everyone could hear. "All right," she said with forced cheer. "If anyone here thinks they can fix this in the next hour, my luxury car is yours." The crowd reacted with surprise. A few people laughed softly, thinking it was just a way to lighten the mood. Elaine's personal car was a custom-built Skyrunner sedan, valued at more than most houses in Nova City. To her, the offer was safe. None of her staff had the skill to solve the problem so quickly, and no stranger would dare try. From the back of the hall, a quiet voice spoke. "I'll take a look." Heads turned. Standing by the far wall was Marcus Hale, the night shift janitor. He wore simple work clothes, his cleaning cart parked beside him. His skin was dark, his hair short, his posture calm. Most people in the company barely noticed him. He emptied trash bins, mopped floors, and replaced light panels. No one had ever seen him touch a piece of advanced technology. Howard stared at him. "You?" he asked, as if unsure he'd heard right. Marcus nodded. "Yes, I think I can help." A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Some of the engineers exchanged amused glances. One whispered, "He doesn't even have clearance for the lab." Elaine's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in curiosity. She had never spoken to Marcus for more than a few seconds, in passing. She certainly didn't know anything about his technical skills. Still, she was in no mood to waste time. "All right, Mr. Hale," she said, her tone half challenge, half dismissal. "The floor is yours. Let's see what you've got." Marcus walked toward the ether core, his steps steady. He didn't seem bothered by the stares or the quiet chuckles from the crowd. He placed his hand lightly on the machine, almost as if listening to it. The humming had stopped completely now, replaced by a faint ticking sound. The air smelled, faintly metallic. Howard stepped aside reluctantly, handing Marcus the diagnostic tablet. "Good luck," he said in a voice that suggested Marcus would need more than luck. Marcus simply nodded. He began scrolling through the machine's error logs, his eyes narrowing in concentration. To the audience, it looked like a janitor trying to play engineer. But if anyone had watched closely, they would have seen how quickly his fingers moved, how he skipped over the obvious checks and went straight to deep system code. Elaine crossed her arms and leaned against the edge of the stage. She didn't expect him to succeed, but there was something oddly compelling about the quiet confidence he carried. Around them, the investors watched with a mix of skepticism and mild curiosity. No one believed this man could fix a machine that had stumped the brightest minds in Novatech. But Marcus didn't seem to hear the doubt in the room. His attention was fixed entirely on the machine in front of him. The room felt different now. A quiet tension settled over the hall as Marcus stood in front of the ether core. Investors who had been checking their messages or glancing at their watches now watched him with mild curiosity. Engineers, still holding their tools, looked unsure whether they should stay or return to their workstations. The news drones shifted positions, their lenses focusing on this unexpected turn. Marcus didn't rush. He placed the diagnostic tablet on a small table beside the machine and ran his fingers lightly over the smooth metal surface of the ether core. His touch was careful, almost gentle, as though he was feeling for something hidden. The crowd didn't know it, but Marcus had worked on machines like this before, more advanced ones, in fact. To him, the ether core was a puzzle, and puzzles always had solutions. Elaine Voss remained near the stage, arms crossed, her sharp eyes fixed on him. She told herself she was only humoring him. In truth, she was curious. Something in Marcus's calm movements didn't match the image of an ordinary janitor. He seemed too focused, too deliberate. Howard, the senior engineer, stood nearby, clearly skeptical. "You know this is a quantum-linked energy system, right?" he said, his tone more mocking than helpful. "It's not something you fix with a mop and bucket." Marcus didn't look up. "I understand," he replied simply. Howard raised an eyebrow. "You understand?" "Yes," Marcus said, still studying the device. "And I know where to start." The engineers around Howard exchanged glances. They were trained experts, yet this man, someone they'd seen pushing cleaning carts in the hallway, was speaking as if he understood the inner workings of their most advanced prototype. One young technician whispered to another, "This is going to be embarrassing." Marcus tapped a few commands into the diagnostic tablet. Streams of code and error logs appeared on the display. Most of it was standard. Voltage inconsistencies, unstable quantum sync, thermal imbalances. But one set of lines caught his attention. They were small timing errors, almost invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. He remembered seeing similar patterns years ago in a project most people had never heard about. He crouched down to inspect the lower panel of the machine. "I'll need this open," he said to Howard. Howard hesitated. "That's a secure access point." "Do you want the problem fixed or not?" Marcus asked, looking at him directly for the first time. There was no challenge in his voice, just a quiet certainty. Howard frowned, then reluctantly keyed in the access code. The panel clicked open, revealing an intricate cluster of circuits, wires, and small modular components. The inside of the ether core looked like a miniature city of light and metal. Marcus leaned closer. The faint ticking sound from earlier was louder now, coming from deep within the system. He recognized it. It was the sound of a stabilizer unit misaligning with the main energy loop. Left unfixed, the device would keep shutting itself down to prevent a full system collapse. While Marcus worked, the audience whispered among themselves. Some investors found the scene amusing. Others were annoyed at the delay. One man in a silver jacket leaned over to Elaine and said in a low voice, "If your own engineers can't fix this, what makes you think he can?" Elaine didn't answer. She didn't have an explanation herself, but she wanted to see what Marcus would do. He didn't waste time asking for every tool he needed. Instead, he adapted, using what was available. From Howard's kit, he selected a micro screwdriver, a precision spanner, and a small thermal calibrator. His hands moved quickly, but never with panic. He adjusted the position of the stabilizer, then reconnected a data cable that was not fully seated. The ticking slowed, then stopped. One of the engineers leaned closer to another and whispered, "How did he even find that so fast?" Marcus glanced at the diagnostic tablet again. The error logs had stopped scrolling, but one problem remained. The ether core's quantum sync was still unstable. If he restarted it now, it might run for a few minutes, but it would fail again under high load. He needed to correct the sync manually. Howard watched in disbelief as Marcus began entering override commands into the system, commands even he had never used. "Where did you learn that?" Howard asked, unable to hide his surprise. Marcus didn't look up. "I used to build something similar," he said. "Not for Novatech." That answer only deepened the mystery. The engineers exchanged uneasy glances. Most of them assumed Marcus had no formal training in high-level energy systems. Now, they weren't so sure. Marcus connected the thermal calibrator and adjusted the system's micro-resonators, slowly bringing the sync back into alignment. The device gave a soft chime, and the error messages vanished from the display. For the first time since the failure began, the ether core's status panel showed a steady green light. He stepped back and wiped his hands on a small cloth from his pocket. "It's ready to test," he said. Howard blinked. "That's it? You're done?" "Yes," Marcus replied. Elaine raised an eyebrow. "And you're confident it will work?" Marcus looked at her calmly. "Yes. Power it on." Howard glanced at Elaine, who gave a slight nod. He pressed the start sequence. The machine hummed to life. This time, the sound was smooth, steady, almost musical. The engraved lines along its surface glowed evenly. No flickers, no warning lights. A low wave of clean energy spread outward, activating the demonstration holograms above the stage. Charts and projections appeared in mid-air, showing perfect stability and output. The crowd was silent for a moment, then several investors began to clap softly. A few of the engineers stared at Marcus as if seeing him for the first time. Howard shook his head, still trying to understand how a janitor had just done what his entire team could not. Elaine didn't clap. Instead, she studied Marcus with sharp interest. Her words from earlier echoed in her mind. "If anyone here can fix this in the next hour, my luxury car is yours." She had spoken them as a joke, confident it would never happen. Now, she wasn't so sure what to say next. Marcus simply stepped back from the machine and returned the tools to Howard. He didn't smile, didn't celebrate. It was just another problem solved in his mind. But for everyone else in that room, the real question was beginning to form. Who exactly was Marcus Hale? The ether core continued to hum with perfect stability, its soft light filling the hall. The investors' cautious clapping grew louder, a sign that they were more than impressed. For them, the demonstration was back on track. For the engineers, however, the focus had shifted entirely. Their eyes were fixed on Marcus, the man they had only known as the janitor. Elaine Voss did not rush to speak. She watched Marcus step away from the device, his face calm and without any trace of pride. That quiet confidence unsettled her more than any boast could have. She had seen many brilliant engineers in her career, but none carried themselves the way Marcus did. There was no arrogance, no nervous excitement, only control. Howard was the first to break the silence. He walked over to Marcus, the diagnostic tablet still in his hand. "That stabilizer issue," he began slowly. "I would have needed hours to trace it. How did you even know where to look?" Marcus glanced at him, then at the machine. "The sound it made told me," he said simply. "I have heard it before in another project." Howard frowned. "Another project? What kind of project?" Marcus looked back at him, his expression unreadable. "Classified, that's all I can say." The word classified caught Elaine's attention. She had worked with people from high-security backgrounds before. She knew that someone who used that word so naturally was not just trying to sound important. It meant Marcus had once been involved in something significant, something not meant for public record. One of the younger engineers, a woman named Tara, stepped closer. "Wait," she said, her curiosity overcoming her caution. "You mean you've worked on quantum-linked systems before?" Marcus gave a short nod. "Yes." Howard laughed softly, though there was no humor in it. "That is not something you learn in a community workshop. Those systems are restricted. Only high-level defense contractors and experimental research labs have them." Marcus said nothing. He did not confirm or deny, but the silence itself was an answer. Across the room, a few investors had begun whispering among themselves. They had come expecting to see a new technology from Novatech. Instead, they had witnessed an unexpected display of skill from a man who had no place in their mental picture of corporate innovation. Some of them were now thinking beyond the ether core, wondering if Marcus himself might be worth investing in. Elaine finally spoke, her voice even but sharp. "Mr. Hale, you have just repaired a prototype worth more than the building we are standing in. I would like to know exactly where you gained this kind of expertise." Marcus turned to face her fully. His posture was straight, his gaze steady. "With respect, Miss Voss, I am not here to talk about my past. You made an offer to reward whoever could fix the machine. I believe it is working now." Her lips curved slightly, not in amusement, but in interest. "You are correct," she said, "and I will honor my word. But I also want to know what you are doing working as a janitor when you could be leading a team of engineers." For a moment, Marcus looked like he might walk away without answering. But then he glanced at the ether core and said quietly, "Sometimes, the work you are best at comes with a cost you are not willing to pay again." It was a vague answer, but Elaine caught the weight in his tone. He was not avoiding the question because he was embarrassed. He was avoiding it because the truth mattered more than anyone in the room might understand. The news drones hovered closer, picking up every word. A few of the investors straightened, in their seats, sensing that this was becoming more than a technical demonstration. Even Howard, who had doubted Marcus from the start, now looked at him with a strange mix of respect and suspicion. Marcus turned back to the machine and began typing a final set of commands into the diagnostic tablet. He ran a series of deep system scans, checking every line of code and hardware reading. The ether core responded smoothly, showing no sign of instability. Satisfied, he locked the system and handed the tablet back to Howard. "It is yours again," Marcus said. Howard took it, still looking a little bewildered. "Thank you," he said reluctantly. Marcus nodded and started toward his cleaning cart at the back of the room. He didn't seem to notice the way people were watching him now. Some with curiosity, some with respect, and others with suspicion. Elaine followed him with her eyes, not ready to let the moment end. She could feel the balance of the day shifting. The investors, once ready to leave after a public failure, were now leaning forward, eager to see where this would lead. Before Marcus could leave the hall, she called out, "Mr. Hale, you are not going back to mopping floors just yet. I have more questions for you." Marcus stopped but did not turn around immediately. He seemed to think for a moment before facing her again. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of someone who had made difficult choices before. I'm not sure you would like the answers," he said. "Try me," Elaine replied. The engineers were now openly watching, their tools forgotten. Tara leaned toward Howard and whispered, "What if he used to be some kind of covert tech specialist? That would explain everything." Howard did not respond. His mind was already racing through the possibilities. Elaine stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "You have a skill set that is rare, Mr. Hale. If what I think is true, you could help Novatech reach a level of innovation that no competitor could match. I want to know what it would take to get you to work for me." Marcus looked at her for a long moment, then gave a small shake of his head. "It is not about the offer. It is about the rules of the work. Without the right rules, the technology we build can do more harm than good. I have seen that happen before." That answer made the room even quieter. It was not what anyone had expected to hear, especially not from a man who had just proven himself capable of solving one of the most advanced engineering problems they had seen. Elaine's mind was already working through possibilities. She knew she could push harder, but she also sensed that Marcus was not a man who responded well to pressure. Instead, she gave him a slow, calculating smile. "Then, perhaps," she said, "we should talk about those rules." Marcus studied her for a moment, then gave a short nod. "Perhaps," he said, and returned to his cart, leaving the room filled with unanswered questions. The investors exchanged looks. The engineers whispered among themselves. And Elaine knew one thing for certain. This day was no longer just about the ether core. It was about Marcus Hale and what he might be hiding. The air in the hall was thick with anticipation. Every person present could sense that what was about to happen might define the future of Novatech. The ether core stood ready for a full restart, its smooth surface gleaming under the bright lights. Yet even with Marcus's earlier adjustments, there was still a quiet uncertainty in the room. The engineers knew how delicate these systems could be. One wrong change could undo everything. Marcus moved with steady purpose. He approached the machine again, his gaze running over every detail of its surface. He knew that repairing the stabilizer and reconnecting the cable was only the first step. The real challenge lay deeper, in the synchronization between the ether core's quantum processors and its energy loops. Without perfect alignment, the device would fail again under pressure. Howard stood nearby, watching closely. His earlier doubts had faded, replaced by cautious respect. "The stabilizer issue was only part of it," Howard said quietly. "You still have sync drift to deal with." Marcus nodded. "Yes, and if we do not fix it now, the system will break down again in minutes." Elaine Voss remained silent, standing near the investors. Her eyes never left Marcus. She was not just observing his technical skills, she was studying how he handled pressure. Every movement, every decision told her something about the man. Marcus retrieved the diagnostic tablet and began entering a sequence of manual override commands. The engineers leaned forward, their attention fixed on the screen. He bypassed the standard maintenance menus entirely, diving into deep-level controls that most technicians would never dare to access during a live demonstration. Code filled the display, lines of data streaming upward as Marcus adjusted system variables in real time. One of the younger engineers whispered to Tara, "Those commands are restricted to senior developers. How does he even know them?" Tara shook her head. "I have no idea." Marcus stopped typing and glanced at the open panel on the side of the machine. "I need to recalibrate the resonator array manually," he said. "Howard, do you have a micro-alignment tool?" Howard hesitated, then handed it over without a word. Marcus crouched beside the panel and reached into the heart of the device. The resonators were arranged in a precise circular pattern, each one tuned to maintain the energy flow between quantum states. Over time, even the smallest shift in their alignment could cause the entire system to destabilize. With careful precision, Marcus adjusted each resonator by fractions of a degree. The work was slow, but he did not rush. Every click of the alignment tool echoed softly in the otherwise quiet room. The investors watched as though they were witnessing an artist at work, their earlier impatience forgotten. When the last resonator was set, Marcus reconnected the internal sensors and checked the readings on the tablet. The synchronization error had dropped from critical levels to a perfect 0. Still, Marcus did not seem satisfied. He studied the data for another full minute before finally straightening up. "It is ready," he said. Howard blinked. "You are sure?" "Yes," Marcus replied. Elaine stepped forward slightly. "Then let us see it work." Howard activated the start sequence. At first, the machine responded with a soft hum, but this time there was no uneven tone. The sound grew richer, deeper, as the ether core came fully online. The engraved lines along its surface began to glow, not in the flickering, unstable way from before, but with a steady, powerful light that filled the hall with a soft radiance. The holographic display above the stage came alive. Charts, graphs, and live energy readouts appeared in mid-air, showing stable output at levels higher than the original design specifications. Even the investors, who had seen countless technological demonstrations before, could not hide their surprise. "It is performing beyond maximum efficiency," one investor whispered to another. Howard checked the readings on his own tablet, his eyebrows rising. "He did not just fix it," he said under his breath. "He improved it." Marcus stepped back, allowing the machine to run uninterrupted. He did not bask in the applause that was beginning to build in the room. For him, this was not a performance. It was simply the right way to finish the job. Elaine allowed the machine to run for several more minutes before signaling Howard to power it down. The ether core responded instantly, shutting down with perfect order. No error messages, no warning. Lights. The room erupted in applause. This time it was not polite or hesitant. It was genuine. Even the engineers who had doubted Marcus were now clapping, some shaking their heads in disbelief. Elaine raised a hand and the noise faded. She turned to Marcus, her expression a mixture of admiration and calculation. "You have done what no one else here could do, and you did it in less than an hour," she said. "That was an impossible fix. And yet, you made it look routine." Marcus gave a small shrug. "Machines tell you what they need if you know how to listen." There was a pause before Elaine spoke again. "You know I cannot ignore what I have seen today. I want to know more about your skills and your past, and I intend to honor my earlier promise. The car is yours." A murmur of surprise moved through the room. The offer had been made in jest, yet Elaine was serious. A nearby investor leaned to his colleague and whispered, "She is not just giving him the car, she is trying to keep him close." Marcus inclined his head slightly. "Thank you, but I did not do this for the car." Elaine smiled faintly. "Perhaps not, but it is yours nonetheless." Howard stepped forward, still holding the diagnostic tablet. "I have to ask, Marcus, where did you really learn to work like this? You speak about machines like you know them better than people." Marcus met his gaze. "Because I do. People hide their faults. Machines show them to you if you pay attention." That answer, simple as it was, seemed to end the conversation for the moment. Marcus walked toward the back of the hall, where his cleaning cart still waited. The applause faded, but the attention did not. Every person in the room knew that they had just witnessed more than a repair. They had seen something rare, a man with knowledge and skill far beyond his apparent station. Elaine watched him go, her mind already turning over possibilities. The ether core might have been saved, but she sensed that Marcus Hale was the true discovery of the day. The applause in the hall had faded, but the air still carried the weight of what had just happened. The ether core sat silent now, its polished surface reflecting the lights above. The investors were speaking quietly among themselves, but their eyes often shifted toward Marcus, who stood by his cleaning cart as though nothing unusual had taken place. Elaine Voss was not a woman who allowed unanswered questions to linger. She stepped away from the stage and crossed the room toward Marcus. The crowd noticed, and their conversations hushed. Even the engineers moved aside, making a clear path between them. "Mr. Hale," Elaine began, her tone firm but not unkind, "you repaired a system my top engineers could not fix. You bypassed security protocols and accessed levels of code meant for classified personnel. I need to know how you learned these things." Marcus met her gaze without hesitation. "I have experience with systems like this," he said. "That much is obvious," Elaine replied. "But where did you gain that experience? No public school or basic engineering program could have taught you that. You worked on something big before this. I can tell." Marcus's expression stayed calm, but his eyes seemed to grow distant, as if looking at something far away in his memory. "I used to work for a private project," he said slowly. "It involved advanced energy systems and experimental technologies. We pushed the limits of what was possible, but something happened. People got hurt. After that, I walked away." The room was quiet enough to hear the faint hum of the air conditioning. Elaine studied him carefully, searching for any sign that he was exaggerating or hiding the truth. She found neither. Howard, standing nearby, could not hold back his curiosity. "What kind of project?" he asked. Marcus shook his head. "I cannot say. It was restricted. Not even everyone on the team knew the full details. But I can tell you this. The technology you are building here is safer than what we tried. If you are careful, it can help people. If you are not, it can harm them faster than you can imagine." His words carried a quiet weight, as though they came from direct experience. Elaine noticed the shift in the room. The investors leaned forward slightly, not wanting to miss anything. The engineers listened intently, their earlier doubts replaced by respect. Elaine decided to press further. "Why take a job as a janitor? With your knowledge, you could work anywhere. You could be running your own research team." Marcus's reply was simple. "Because cleaning floors does not put anyone in danger. Machines like the ether core are powerful, but power always tempts people to push past the limits. I do not want to be part of that again." Elaine considered his answer. It was rare to meet someone who had the skills to change the world, but chose not to use them out of principle. She admired it, though she also found it frustrating. A person like Marcus could accelerate Novatech's progress by years, if only he could be convinced. "Mr. Hale," she said, lowering her voice slightly, "I believe you when you say you walked away for a reason, but today you proved that you are still willing to step in when it matters. That tells me you are not finished with this kind of work. You just need the right conditions." Marcus looked at her, his gaze steady. "And what conditions would those be?" "That is for you to decide," Elaine replied. "If you were to join Novatech in a role of your choosing, with the authority to set safety protocols and control how your technology is used, would you consider it?" Howard's eyes widened. An offer like that was unheard of. Engineers worked under strict hierarchies with rules set from the top. For Elaine to offer Marcus the ability to set his own conditions meant she valued him far more than she was willing to admit publicly. Marcus did not answer right away. He glanced at the ether core, still sitting on its platform. "It is tempting," he said at last. "But I have seen how quickly rules can be ignored when profit is involved. Good intentions are not enough." Elaine understood the challenge in his words. "Then you will have to make sure they are more than intentions," she said. "I cannot promise perfection, but I can promise that if you take this position, I will back you. Your rules will be our rules." There was a murmur among the investors. Some clearly liked the idea of having a man like Marcus in charge of development. Others worried about giving so much authority to someone outside their network of influence. But none could deny that his skill had just saved them from a major disaster. Marcus studied Elaine for a long moment. She did not look away. Finally, he said, "I will think about it. But I will need more than promises. I will need control over my team, final say on the designs, and the right to shut down any project that violates safety protocols. Without question." Howard's eyebrows shot up. No engineer had that kind of authority. But Elaine did not hesitate. "If that is what it takes, then yes, I will agree to it." Marcus seemed almost surprised at her quick answer. "You are serious?" "I am," Elaine said. "You may not realize it, but today you have given me something more valuable than my car. You have given me a glimpse of what this company could become if led by the right people." The mention of the car made Marcus smile faintly. "Speaking of which, I believe there was a promise to honor." Elaine allowed herself a small smile in return. "Of course. The Skyrunner is yours. I will have it prepared for you this afternoon." The room stirred again. Even those who had doubted her earlier knew Elaine Voss was a leader who kept her word. And Marcus Hale, the janitor who had fixed the unfixable, had just been handed one of the most expensive personal vehicles in the city. Yet Marcus's mind was not on the car. As Elaine turned back to address the investors, he looked at the ether core one more time. He had repaired it today, but he knew that was only the beginning. Technology this powerful always attracted attention, from people who wanted to use it for good, and from those who did not care about the consequences. Marcus could feel it. This was not the last time he would be called to step in. The next morning, the Novatech headquarters was unusually quiet for such a large building. Normally, the sound of conversations, humming machines, and echoing footsteps filled the glass corridors. But today, there was a certain tension in the air. Word had spread quickly about what had happened during the investor presentation. Everyone knew that a janitor named Marcus Hale had done what the top engineers could not. Marcus walked through the lobby carrying his cleaning supplies as he always did. People turned their heads as he passed. Some whispered in disbelief, others nodded in respect. He did not slow down or respond. His calm steps carried him toward the upper levels where he had been asked to meet Elaine Voss. When he reached her office, the glass doors slid open automatically. Elaine was standing by the wide window, looking out over the city skyline. Her desk was neat, with only a few papers and a sleek tablet on it. The morning sunlight reflected off the buildings outside, casting bright patterns across the floor. "Mr. Hale," she said without turning, "thank you for coming." Marcus set down his cleaning cart by the wall. "You said you wanted to talk." "I did," Elaine replied. She faced him now, her expression serious. "I thought about what you said yesterday, about needing control, safety protocols, and the right to stop any project you believe is dangerous. I have decided I want you here, and I am prepared to give you exactly that." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You are offering me a position?" "More than a position," Elaine said. "I am offering you leadership. I want you to head a new division, Novatech, special projects. You will choose your team, approve your own designs, and answer only to me. Your primary responsibility will be to ensure that our technology serves people without putting them in harm's way." It was a bold proposal. Marcus crossed his arms. You realize I have no interest in profit or publicity. I will not compromise safety for deadlines, and I will not tolerate interference from anyone, even you." Elaine gave a faint smile. I'm counting on that. I have seen too many leaders bend under pressure from investors. You will not. That is why I am asking you." Marcus stayed quiet for a moment, considering her words. His mind drifted back to the last time he had been in such a position, back to the private project that had ended in disaster. He remembered the promises made, the warnings ignored, and the consequences that followed. Taking this offer could lead him down the same road, but refusing might mean watching from the sidelines while someone else made reckless decisions. "What makes you think your board will approve this?" Marcus asked finally. Elaine walked to her desk and tapped her tablet. "They already have. Yesterday's incident made them realize how valuable you are. Saving the Ether core in front of the investors gave them confidence that you can protect their investment. They care about results. You delivered results." Marcus could see that she was telling the truth. "If I agree, I will need unrestricted access to every active project, not just the ones you choose to show me, and I will need a secure lab away from the main development floor where my team can work without interruption." "You will have it," Elaine said without hesitation. "A secure section is already being cleared on level 6. The lab will be built to your specifications." Her quick agreement caught him off guard. "You move fast." "I have to," Elaine replied. "Novatech is not the only company working on this kind of technology. If we do not act now, others will. And I would rather have you guiding the work than someone less careful." Marcus glanced toward the window. The city stretched endlessly, a network of steel, glass, and ambition. Somewhere out there, he knew, other teams were pushing the boundaries of science without considering the consequences. "You said I would answer only to you," he said. "Does that mean you will back my decisions even when they are unpopular?" Elaine stepped closer, meeting his gaze. "Yes. I will not overrule you on safety matters. If you shut down a project, it stays shut down. If you say no, it means no." That was the promise he needed. Still, he wanted one more thing clear. "I work for the project, not for the company. If Novatech ever decides to use my work for harm, I walk away." Elaine nodded. "Then we understand each other." The two stood in silence for a moment. Outside, clouds moved slowly across the sky. Finally, Marcus said, "I will accept, on one condition. I want my first task to be an independent review of the Ether core. Yesterday's failure was not random. Something caused it. I need to find out what." Elaine considered this. "I suspected you might say that. Very well. You will have full access to the system. But if you find something, I want you to tell me before anyone else." "Agreed," Marcus said. Elaine extended her hand. Marcus looked at it for a moment before shaking it. Her grip was firm, and for the first time since they met, there was a sense of mutual trust. "There is one more matter," Elaine said. "The Skyrunner. It is ready for you. But you should know, taking it will make you even more noticeable. People will ask questions." Marcus gave a small shrug. "Let them ask. I will be too busy working." Elaine smiled faintly. "In that case, your lab will be ready within the week. I expect your first report on the Ether core as soon as possible." When Marcus left her office, the whispers in the corridors began again. This time, they were not about a janitor who fixed a machine. They were about the man who had just been given control over some of the most advanced technology in the city. Howard caught up with him near the elevator. "So it's true," he said. "You are running your own division now." Marcus did not answer right away. "I am running a safety division," he said finally. "And I intend to keep it that way." Howard grinned. "I will be keeping an eye on you, in a good way." As the elevator doors closed, Marcus thought about what lay ahead. The Ether core was only one piece of the puzzle. There would be other Machines, other projects, other dangers, but this time he would have the authority to stop them before they went too far. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, but it did not feel heavy. It felt right. Marcus stepped into the new lab on level 6. The space was bright, modern, and quiet. Walls of glass separated it from the rest of the building. Machines and tools lined the tables, all ready for use. This was the place where Marcus would work, with his new team, but for now, he was alone. He moved toward a large console displaying the EtherCore's system data. The screen showed detailed logs of the device's performance, errors, and maintenance history. Marcus began scrolling through the files, looking for anything unusual. His eyes focused on the moment just before the machine's failure during the demonstration. The logs showed a sudden spike in energy output, followed by an immediate shutdown. That spike was the key. Normally, the EtherCore's safety protocols should have prevented such a surge. Marcus leaned closer. He accessed the system's core settings and began tracing the safety controls line by line. It was here he found the unexpected, a hidden command buried deep in the code. The command bypassed some of the safety checks during high load. He frowned. This was not an accident. Someone had programmed the machine to allow a dangerous spike. But why? Marcus decided to run a full system simulation to see what would happen if the safety bypass was active. The simulation showed the EtherCore becoming unstable almost immediately. The energy flowed uncontrollably, risking a total meltdown. His suspicion grew. This was sabotage. Someone inside Novatech had wanted the machine to fail, possibly to stop the project or to damage the company's reputation. Marcus leaned back, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. He needed help. This was bigger than one man. He opened a secure channel and called Tara, the young engineer who had spoken to him before. "Tara, I need your assistance in reviewing the EtherCore's code and hardware," Marcus said. "Can you meet me in the lab?" Within minutes, Tara arrived. She looked curious, but also serious. Marcus explained what he had found. Tara's eyes widened. "Sabotage? That's a strong word." "I don't take it lightly," Marcus said. "Someone hit a bypass in the safety protocols. It could have destroyed the whole system." Together, they began to analyze the code in more detail. Tara found other anomalies, small changes in the wiring diagrams and unauthorized access logs. "They were very careful," Tara said. "But they made mistakes." Marcus nodded. "We need to find who did this before they cause more damage." As they worked, Marcus thought about the people who had access to the EtherCore. Only a few engineers and executives had clearance to modify its core systems. It would have to be someone from inside the company. He also considered the investors, who had been present during the demonstration. Was it possible that someone wanted to sabotage the project to manipulate the stock value or force a buyout? Marcus and Tara made a list of everyone who had access and started checking their recent activity logs. The system showed unusual logins from one senior engineer who had been critical of the project. His name was Alan Reed. Marcus frowned. He had met Reed briefly. The man had always seemed ambitious but skeptical of new ideas. Marcus decided to confront Reed carefully. He asked Tara to prepare a backup of all the logs and code changes in case anyone tried to delete evidence. Later that day, Marcus found Reed near the engineering floor. Reed looked surprised to see Marcus and quickly tried to hide his tablet. "Alan," Marcus said calmly, "I am reviewing the recent issues with the EtherCore. You had access to the system during the last week. Can you explain some of the code changes I found?" Reed's face tightened. "I was only trying to optimize the system," he said. Marcus shook his head. "Bypassing safety protocols is not optimization. It almost caused a disaster." Reed's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand the pressures we face. Investors want results, and sometimes we have to take risks." Marcus stepped closer. "Risk without control leads to failure. That is exactly what happened. I will be reporting this." Reed's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Marcus left and returned to the lab. He knew this was only the beginning. The sabotage had a purpose, but what it was, he did not yet know. He looked out the window at the city below. Novatech's future depended on more than just machines. It depended on the people behind them. Marcus was ready to protect both.